2018 Business Insider article, it states for the first time in history, hip hop has surpassed rock to become the most popular music genre, according to Nielsen. But one of the groups that has significantly contributed to this musical form is Public Enemy.
More than any other rap act, Public Enemy is credited with rewriting the rules of hip hop, both as a musical form and as a market force. There is no debate that Public Enemy is one of the most influential groups in the history of rap music. To many, the group's arrival in the late 80s signaled hip hop's growth into a serious art form. The massively influential crew's early releases, Yo Bum Rush the Show, It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back, Fear of a Black Planet, were landmarks, both for their militant, socially conscious lyrics and for their innovative, groundbreaking sound. Public Enemy's first 4 albums during the late 1980s and early 1990s were all certified either gold or platinum and were, according to music critic Robert Hilburn in 1998, quote, the most acclaimed body of work ever by a hip-hop act, end of quote. Critic Stephen Thomas Erlewine called them, quote, the most influential and radical band of their time, end of quote. They were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2013. They were honored with the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award at the 62nd Grammy Award.
Public Enemy has also introduced some of hip hop's most memorable performers. One of them is the lead rapper Chuck D, who used his lyrical skill to address a wide range of social and political issues relevant to the Black community. Chuck D is still influencing artists even today.
Peace and blessings, family. My name is Lil Rocka from the rap group Salam Nation, and most definitely Chuck D has been an inspiration to me. 3 great things that I love about my brother Chuck D was, number 1, his stage presence, the way he was able to move back and forth. The second thing was his ability to combine his style with the likes of Flavor Flav. And the third one was when he said Farrakhan. Farrakhan's a prophet, and I think you ought to listen to. You know, when he said that, was just bold. You know, he said things that was pretty much an unpopular opinion in hip hop, and he was bold for that, and I love him for that. So that's what I love about my brother Chuck D.
Yo, what's happening? So, look, when I think about Chuck D, I think about that powerful voice that cut through all frequencies and how he used his voice to spread an even more powerful message as far as what's been going on, what's currently going on, and what we need to do about it. As a young artist, I think about Chuck D every time I got to say something really important. So, I love Chuck D.
So thank you for joining us today, Brother Chuck. We appreciate you for accepting this invitation, my brother.
Thank you, Brother Willie. It is a pleasure. And to get props from young brothers and sisters that got black in their hair is amazing.
Well, hey, we got more lined up. You're going to see more people expressing their gratitude and appreciation for what you have done and what you're continuing to do today. So let's jump right into the interview. As I prepared for this interview, I did some research, and it made me think about how today, with the distribution and public access to music is readily available with the internet. But from my research, you and Public Enemy were the first to release a full album online, and you were one of the early proponents who challenged record labels and those in the industry who opposed doing such. So my first question is, how do you think your stance has helped to create the current digital landscape that we are seeing musically today?
Good question, Brother Willie. Well, it was not to be prophetic in anything. We're in what you call the music industry, the record industry, more importantly, as far as people are connected to us. And it was up to us to try to grow beyond that. So at that particular time, the record industry had started to close its walls. And although they weren't, quote unquote, saying that they were censoring artists, in fact, they were, where they were kind of like kowtowing, the narrative of hip hop and rap music into something that just behooved them as far as sales, numbers, the quantity over the quality. And so they had skewed, the hip hop narrative of being diverse and many voices, and especially the collective of groups into this thing that, they reduced it to this things like, listen, if it's got to be one voice that does and says this to get us our numbers, to get us our spreadsheet, then this is what we're going to do. The problem is when everything gets favored to just be that one trick pony, as they said. And we saw that we weren't going to have a life in that particular structure. So we tried to understand that there had to be ways that we could get directly to the fan, the fanatic, without the infrastructure of the business that had become one-sided. Mm-hmm. So in 1995 and 1996, I started to discover, with the help of a surrounding group of friends and technologists and scientists, that the internet was coming. And at that particular time, not a lot of people were on their computers per se to get music.
Our brother actually went out, so hopefully we'll be getting him back on. We'll be getting him back on soon to continue the actual interview. So excuses why we're having these technical difficulties. One second, my brothers and sisters. And always, we thank you all for joining us. And in the meantime, while you're actually watching, and we're sending messages to get them back on, make sure that you actually hit the like button. Make sure you also subscribe to NNV, because this show, I Have a Testimony, is a part of a larger network. And the network is National Network View, where their shows are daily digital news shows Monday through Fridays at 5 p.m. Central Time. And you can find out how the Black perspective on key issues and different different issues that affect us as a people. Yeah, we're going to go to that, and we'll go to our slide. And in addition to that, what we want to talk about as we wait to get our brother back on, take a moment and look at this flyer here talking about our effort here in the city of New Orleans to pay off our building. Look at the information, and you see that we talk about this. One second, y'all. We talk about this every week. We talk about this every week. So whatever you can give, please make sure that you can actually contribute. One second. Here we go. You can actually contribute. In addition to that, what we also have in regards to is our Mosque prayer group, where we're praying for those who are actually impacted by this COVID, by the actual disease itself, or actually been impacted by, a loss of job or whatever it may be. I mean, our community, we need prayer, our community, we need prayer. And as a result of that, we definitely have to we can have people that can actually pray on us. So we're waiting for our brother to get back on, and we'll continue this interview. When he comes back on. So hopefully thus far, we appreciate that you all enjoying what you actually seen. And our brother was very touched to see that there are many young people that are actually still impacted by him. His actual Chrome service has actually went down. Hopefully ours doesn't go down. So he's waiting to get back on. And what we can do for our producers, before I do that, can we go back and replay the clip of those young brothers giving it up to Brother Chuck D? And
be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps us to highlight solutions for a brighter tomorrow. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.
Asiatic Minds, online education, helping our children to discover their God-given skills, gifts, talents, and passion that will allow them to see their greatness, as well as the greatness of our people, and upon discovering that greatness, infusing them with the desire to use it for the betterment of themselves, their families, our people, and the world. Call now, 502-219-4848.
This is Sister Sajda Muhammad. We are proud to announce that the Sajda House commemorative Elijah coins are finally here. This priceless heirloom, made from recycled copper from the messenger's home, is now available at sajdahouse.com.
The hashtag Bank Black social media campaign made strides not only in revolutionizing how we bank, but also how we think. The movement inspired thousands of African Americans across the country to transfer or deposit millions of dollars into Black-owned banks. These are banks that will invest in urban communities, employ African Americans, support Black businesses, and inspire Black home ownership. This is a very proud moment for our culture as we are taking small, but significant, steps towards building Black power through Black wealth.
Thank you for tuning in to NNV News. Please share your thoughts with us in the comments section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel, National Network View. This is Clifton Muhammad with NNVnews.com.
We're back. So that listen, how you said in your song, in one of the songs, brother's gonna work it out. We're gonna work it out.
Brother's gonna work it out. Yeah. And you know, to be on top of all the technology in the 90s and know that it was already going to be a fallen tree, we knew the inevitability of what was going to happen as far as delivery of content over the phone lines. Really, not over the phone line, over the computer lines. And then later on, in the middle of the 2006, 2007. Matter of fact, it was in New Orleans where I had a person who's a representative of Apple who told me the future of everything coming through the phones. And she showed me, I was in a New Orleans restaurant, your hometown, Brother Willie, and she was telling me that people are going to go to their phones, and she started touching the screen. And I've said, it ain't food friendly, man. If I'm eating my food with my hands and my fingers, I ain't touching no phones. He said, trust me, it'll happen. So it tells you that no matter what we think or what we feel, technologists already have mapped out a future that's going to lead us into, whether we like it or not, lead us into using these particular devices. So I've gotten into the science of telling people how to wean off of the device, how to keep their humanity, trying to hold on to the humanity of self as opposed to machinery and gadgets. So we were doing all that 25, 30 years ago. And that's why we kind of released the album in 1999 to introduce how things are going to be online, in the internet, in this other world that they created called cyberspace.
Wow. And so also, you know, our next question is one of the most profound, one of the other most profound aspects of Public Enemy outside of the music is the logo itself, which was prominently displayed in one of the Terminator movie installments when one of the main characters actually wore the actual t-shirt. So my question to you is, decades later,
and I never saw the movie but myself, I still haven't seen it.
Well, we got a picture that's going to come up. Decades later, how relevant is that logo to what is taking place with Blacks in America today?
I designed the logo in the middle of the 1980s. Public Enemy signified the logo that was the black man in the target. At that time, people were wearing, you know, the fedoras, like the Run DMC hats. So I had actually designed a person, a brother, who was in the target of a suppressive system. It wasn't just police, it was government. Remember at the time when Public Enemy started, you had, you know, Nelson Mandela was still in prison, and police brutality was everything during R&B, and that was Reagan and Bush. And all of a sudden we seen this plethora of guns and drugs in our communities where you couldn't find that amount of drugs and guns in the communities just 10 years prior. I remember like yesterday where I grew up in Roosevelt, Long Island. guns and drugs were a distant, scattered thing. But by 1977, 1978, there seemed to be a plethora of it coming up out of nowhere. And then by the 80s, what you start to see is that the OGs would get locked up, and you had young people running the streets, and the denominator that separated the statuses was the money that was made, the quick money that was made. And I seen that happen in a 10-year period, going from 15 to 25. So obviously, when I started recording at 26, I had a lot of things to say. So that target signified exactly what I had been seeing and what we had been seeing, because we were collective. Public Enemy was a collective. Myself, Flavor Flav, Hank Shockley, Keith Shockley, Eric Sadler, Professor Griff, James Baum, Terminator X, the DJ. We were collective that actually took our whole thing that we did in Long Island as mobile DJs and radio jocks and youth groups and martial arts schools, and we just put it all in one group called Public Enemy. But really, Public Enemy was a sum of a bunch of 5 or 6 different organizations. It's just that we was the ones that happened to do it in music, because I was in the arts and I was in the music, and that was a common thread. So that logo signified how we all not just felt, but who we were and how we were.
And you mentioned about your skill in regards to arts when you were in college as a graphic designer, right? And I noticed that you used that skill again for the Grid State of the Union, where you used an abstract art depicting the death of our brother George Floyd. Now, you have been around and you've witnessed and saw the news reports about the numerous public incidents of police brutality over the years, from Rodney King, Breonna Taylor, Tamir Rice, and now George Floyd. From your perspective, do you think our people's tolerance level for this kind of treatment has lessened or has it increased?
The biggest thing, Brother Willie, the difference between 1989, when we did the second Fight the Power, the Osley brothers did the first one in 1975, so we were inspired by that. And when we actually got together with our friends and peers to do the Fight the Power in 2020, the biggest difference is 30 years. So you have a lot of people in the 80s who are no longer here, and people that were born afterwards who are now in adulthood. And I think younger energy and younger people had saw that what had happened to George Floyd was once again a tipping point. But they just also said, listen, how long y'all gonna keep turning?
You see, we're having another technical difficulties, but you heard our brother. There he is.
Yeah, I'm still here. They just got tired of it, and they wanted to answer to that, and they answered to that in their own way. I have a feeling that artists should be able to reflect the people. Do we lead the people? I think we need to point to leadership that's out there. This is why Public Enemy. No, we didn't say we were Farrakhan. We said Farrakhan is somebody I think you ought to listen to and check out. Whether you agree or disagree, check the man out and be able to form your own opinion. Just don't blindly just go out there and follow what's thrown at you. And I think young people and young energy said, listen, all this that y'all talking, we got to answer this our way, because what we keep seeing is y'all keep turning pages. I think what we also would like to do in arts is show it in an example of what hip hop and rap music can do. It shouldn't be no different than Bob Marley, Bob Dylan, and Bobby Womack. You know what I'm saying? It can move and change the earth in thought, meaning, and deed as well. But you got to point to the real people and the real movers and shakers. And this is why Public Enemy has saluted great leaderships, great organizations. Nation of Islam has taken us to places in the world that situations wouldn't take us. They wouldn't even open it. I mean, the Nation of Islam brought us to Africa, brought us to many countries in South America and the Caribbean, where your success is not measured by money. Your success is measured by the quality of soul, not the quantity of dividends. And that's what we try to tell artistry, that the currencies that you get from the artistry is worth more than gold. It's soul exchange. It's community building, it's human building, it's protection as well. And we took to that whole inherently and wholeheartedly, so to speak, of what you could do with the arts. I thought the best song that dealt with the situation of what had happened in police brutality and whatnot was a brother named Papoose. Papoose did a song, man, that actually went from A to Z on every single incident, even going back to Emmett Till. And I just played it on my radio show just this weekend from what I played last June. So, I mean, we want to show examples, and we believe that arts could show examples and enlighten people to be able to make change. Because you gotta turn the switch on to people in order for them to do things. So what's going to turn that switch on? We know what turns the switch off. So we want to try to turn the switch on for a person to at least be active in the change that they feel that they can see and also be.
Right. And why I open up talking about an article that talks about how hip hop has now become like the most powerful music genre. Why do you think that it has been able to surpass, like they talk about rock and roll and everything, and has not only a national impact, but a global impact?
But number one, I don't think it's the biggest genre, because what it is the culmination of all genres. And I think, see, rap is not a music. Rap is a vocal. You have talking and you have singing. So you can actually do this vocal style, which has been refined to go on all other types of musics that have been, I guess, categorized, named, determined, or whatever. That's its beauty. That's its strength, that its vocal ability can ride a lot of different musical terrains and a lot of musicianship. Hip hop it's the essence of who we are. It's the Black creativity. It's the creativity of coming out of something that's regarded as nothing and turning it into something. But that's just the name of it. We've always been creative people. So it's just the name going back to, let's say, 69 or 70 or 73, if you want to say the start of hip hop. But our creativity goes back like eons, hundreds and thousands of years, even millions of years, if you want to go back to the universe. It's a universal thing. It happens to just be the name for our creativity. For somebody to come along and say that they own hip hop or they govern hip hop is crazy, because it's soul. You can't own soul. You know what I'm saying? It is or it ain't. You got it or you don't. You know what I'm saying? So hip hop and rap music, yes, it's
We have partners for the technical difficulties again. We're waiting for our brother to get back in, but we pray that you all. There we go. You paused for a moment. You were saying hip hop is. That was the last part that I heard.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Hip hop is.
And it's so. And also, before we're leading up to, in a couple more minutes, we have our first break. I want to talk to you about, because our brother helped us to make the connect with your brother, Captain Dennis. When did you first meet him? The old Cap,
1987. Man. When Captain Dennis calls, I gotta come to the call, man. So Captain Dennis is been a brother that, you have the people in the Nation of Islam for many years and very, serious about it. Mm-hmm. But it had to be a liaison between artists, athletes, who the minister had said has been the gold and diamonds of our value system in this hemisphere or in this country. So if they're going to project athletes and entertainers to be this upper echelon, it's important for those people to shine back to real leadership. But that category of people created by an industry, it has to be a liaison between organizations and that body of artists, entertainers, athletes, or whatever. And you have to have that language skill or that charisma or that personality. So Captain Dennis, is that bridge, to also to work with, youth organization, young people who might think a gang is attractive or a replacement. He has that language and he has that effervescence to be able to connect the bridges. And the Nation of Islam, since the 1980s, they found key people who would connect the bridges between an academic body, athletes and entertainers, and still organizations who are about doing the work. Organizations are about doing the work. They're not looking for no glamour, fame, lights, or whatever. The work has to be done. But the WORK is a culmination of a whole bunch of people and doing a lot of different things forward from many different places. Sometimes artists and entertainers, they have their antenna, you know what I'm saying? So how do you take that shine to actually, you know, be distributed like a light or from a prism or a spectrum, so to speak? And Captain Dennis has been one of those key figures to swing people in, said, listen, it ain't all, yeah, we're an organization. Yes, we have religion, we have all these things, but this, like any organizations that's about forward movement and community, is going to do anyway. But don't be afraid of us. This is who we are. We cool. Well, you cool too. We family. And that's what Captain Dennis has done for me. And quite a few. I mean, if, you know, like I used to collect baseball cards.
Mm-hmm.
Like, in a way, like I all look at like a lot of the movers and shakers in the Nation of Islam, like if they were on baseball cards, like Nation of Islam cards, like, you know, Dr. Ali and Brother Akbar, man. It's like, you know, I mean, yeah, man. Sister Ava Muhammad, you know, Brother Khalid back in the day. You know what I'm saying? They had, everybody had you got the chief, you know, Minister Farrakhan. They have personalities in their leadership, but it was just done in the duty, you know. With us as athletes and entertainers, it was about, okay, shine into the duty, you know. And that was always been a fun aspect for me, as well as taking it serious. A lot of times people don't take too serious, but I always have had some of my great laughs, you know, with Mustafa, you know, the minister's son, and Josh and Lewis, and, you know, great, you know, and about the duty, you know what I'm saying? And this is where that liaison in the middle is so important on the introduction. It's irreplaceable in my life, man. It's irreplaceable.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you for that, brother. We're coming up on our next break, and we're going to pause for these brief public announcements.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Go to nnvnews.com/donate.
Worldwide, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Download the Final Call Radio app and take us everywhere. On your phone, on your computer, on your tablet, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also log on to finalcall.com and click the Listen Live button, or finalcallradio.com. Final Call Radio, the official voice of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam.
Please share your thoughts with us in the comment section below. Follow us on social media at NNV News, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel at National Network View. I am Anissa Muhammad with nnvnews.com.
D to be one of the greatest voices in hip hop, and one of those who still influence is still relevant today. And we want to make sure that our brother have the opportunity to see and know of the many people that he still has impacted, of course, but still is impacting today. And here's one clip.
I got so much trouble on my mind, refuse to lose. Hey, yo, check this out, man. When I was riding around in my 98 Oldsmobile with my Uzi that weighed a ton, I was on a mission to go do something real disrespectful to somebody. But instead of making that left, I made a right. And I had a message to the black man in the front seat, and I was flipping through it because I was hearing a brother like Chuck D just drop little C's through his music. So when I made that right to go do that mission, that was the best decision I ever made in my life, because it was a mission to go help the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, help the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad go get his people, man. So Chuck D, it's always been love. I remember one time we was in Paris, France. I was with a group called The Licks on tour, and Chuck D, Flavor Flav, Professor Grip, Terminator X, my brother James Bond, they always welcome me with just open arms, treating me like a little brother, man. So it's always been love. Brother Willie, hey, thank you so much for having such a great motivation. Like, he like a father figure to me. I'm going to tell you straight up. When the Public Enemy logo was displayed, it always let you know if you a young black man in America who, in your B-boy stance, who want to do hip-hop, that you was going to be a target for speaking how you want to speak. Chuck D ain't never been afraid to say what he say, never been afraid to represent what he represent, and that's freedom, justice, and equality under the flag of Islam. Master Muhammad, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Chuck D made it cool for us to represent them three men. So forever, to me, from your brother Derek, for real, I thank you. I love you, brother.
And this next clip is from a brother who actually worked in the city of New Orleans. He's still in the city of New Orleans, and he worked in one of the top hip hop record stores here in the city. And this is our brother Charles. Let's see what brother Charlie has to say about our brother Chuck D.
All right, showing love to one of the greatest voices in hip hop, Chuck D, frontman, Public Enemy #1, the hard rhymer, the rhyme animal. What else can I say? Very respected. Big on this word. So whether if it was Tupac on up to DMX, Chuck D has influence on pretty much every MC. Not many can say that they hated on him. His context, his flow, his voice, what he stood for, he stood on what he stood for. So the blacker the message, the broader it reached. So it was a pro-black militant group that still spoke for everybody, you know. So Chuck is that dude. So respect to him. Respect.
And that was our brother Charlie used to work at Odyssey, and that was a big place for people to go and purchase hip hop albums here in the city of New Orleans. And so we're back with our brother Chuck D. And if you saw brother Charlie, you probably know him, because he was always in that store.
We were always you know, and always a group that you know, I mean, Luther Campbell told me this years ago. He said, man, stars spelled backwards as rats. so I tried best not to, you know, be on a star tip, and I'm not one to you know, take praise easily, because it to me it's we instead of I. And I've always been able to try to do my best to distribute the praise to everybody else, and not me. It's the duty, man. I'm an artist, and I love doing the arts. And and a lot of times I do arts for my self-satisfaction. But when you distribute it amongst people, it's about, especially coming in front of people face to face, it's about, you know, fulfilling that obligation. And then you do your art the way you want to do your art, but when it comes down to deal with people, you try to be accountable a little bit, you know.
Yes, sir. And nearly everybody who I talked to in preparation for this interview, all of them had the same consistent thing to say about you, my brother, that you are a good person. And just like how you said, it's not about the I, it is about the we. And that's one of the reasons why I think also why you have such a long lasting legacy in hip hop, because it's not about you. You're thinking about the whole. And when you do that, you have, as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan says, you last for a long time. Look at this next question. In one of your interviews, I saw you spoke about how there's a decline and a lack thereof of a feature that was once part of the foundation of hip hop, which is hip hop crews. So from your perspective, how has the decline of hip hop crews negatively impacted the direction of hip hop and the quality of the music, if it has?
Well, what it does, it removes the accountability and the collectivity and the diversity that's needed, where you can't, corner one person to make them say or do whatever you would want them to do if you outside of that. And also what it does, it actually reflects the community. Many voices, many people adding up to the assembly line of the narrative. So I always thought that if you have a crew, you have a bunch of participants and who are involved in the doing something, it makes it all the better. And then it's up for the person at the top or at the top of that particular situation. And the reason I guess I would have been at the top is because I'm the guy with the record getting the recording contract with the voice. So it was important to bring upon a flavor to include, our producers into the narrative, the Bomb Squad, and say we all gonna do this together. So I basically took one person's contract and made it grow into 50. And so the responsibility is also, once you got them, how do you spread, the love, the finance, and the experience? And I think I did that for 30 years in a row. And now everybody has their own different things. I always tell people, said, I don't have an open door policy. You know why, Brother Will? Because I don't have a door. It's one thing to say I have a closed door policy, I have an open door policy. I don't even have a door. And that's pretty much what signified Public Enemy for a long particular time. It wasn't about the I, it was about the we, and how can we even make the we bigger? How can I tell you how you can do what you do and ain't got nothing to do with me, no strings attached. Me, I ain't trying to have skin in your game. You do you do your thing, because you're surrounded by a community, you're surrounded by your family, you surrounded by, when you come up and the eyes are going to be looking at you. Now, what you going to do with that? The great Gamble and Huff, Kenny Gamble and Leon Huff, my mentors, and Tom Bell, they had a song back in the day, says, that they're done by the OJs and later on covered by Third World, said, now that you found love, what are you going to do with it?
Wow.
Words could change. Words could change the world. It could start wars and it could prevent them.
Yeah, that's true, man. And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan recently shared with us, he said that words matter. And I wanted to ask you this, and as I thought about it, I was like, I think I might know what the answer to this question is, but we'll see, right? If you had the opportunity to assemble a modern version of Public Enemy from artists today, those in the mainstream or those who are not in the mainstream, what artists would you select and why?
I would think that it would be across different generations, maybe different ages, all in one group. I think today the collectives is when a lot of artists collab with each other. So in ways you could look at that as being a group, because today artists freely collab with each other, where before contracts would restrict that. And I think that's what makes a group today. I think maybe the guidance and the wisdom and the overstanding is that, okay, now that you got all this, it's like, give a little bit for the people as much as you do your little whoop on the side. You know what I'm saying? And I think in the record contracts before, they were weighed and judged by what they were bringing financially to the table. So therefore, a lot of artists were afraid, well, if I do this positive record over here and it don't move, and I do this record about the whoop and whatever, and this does move and pays me, keeps my contract, I'm all good. And so they would be like, but at least they would, when they was making albums, they make that one song for the hood. Too Short made one of the greatest records ever for the community that I wish I made. He made The Ghetto. Took the Donny Hathaway record, and I looked at Short Dog. I said, "Bro, you did." man, he said, man, I was inspired by you. I said, so we're a community just in itself. So I think that today the collectives of and it is another thing I have to say, Willie Bill, Brother Willie. It's that worldwide hip hop takes the gold and the silver. The future of hip hop is Africa. More more spitters in Africa than the United States. It's if they wake up doing it, you know, and they got different languages, and they do it with different things like clicking and stuff like that. Europe, Asia, everywhere else on the planet. These collectives, I would like to see the collective become more international because the diaspora is screaming. And the diaspora has answers. And I learned this from Brother Akbar, who taught me about the diaspora, Brother Akbar Muhammad. The diaspora can save Black folk in America, because if you disconnect yourself from the diaspora, you will be outnumbered and deemed a slave in chains in the United States of America if you think it's the only place. The diaspora maximizes our team. It thickens our numbers, man. It expands our soul and our quality. When you just say you're American, United States of American, you know, termed right or whatever, you reduce yourselves. You got to stretch to the diaspora, and the diaspora is spitting different languages, different ways of life, science, all those other areas that we feel that's beyond us. The whole world excels in it, and Black folk around the whole world excel in a lot of different areas that might be looked upon as being stupendous, super or whatever, or boring. And I'm just like saying, the things that save your life are never ever boring, man. The things that enhance your life are never ever boring. The things that are thrown to you so that you could go out and buy seem exciting. They might not be those things that actually make you look at your life and say, this is great. So the diaspora has answers, bro. And here's another thing I have to say before any technology cuts us off or whatever. Let us not look at scholarship as lesser than. The difference between scholars and regular folk is that sometimes if we end up reading, we read what we like. Scholars read what they don't want to read, and they read what they like, and then come up with a concise point of view. You know, people that get in religious study, they read Bibles, Qurans, Torahs, and all that. That's why you can't step into the footsteps of a Minister Farrakhan, because he studied dynamically in all these to be able to come with a concise statement and movement of people as they live, die, transition, or whatever. Countries change names, things. You come up with a concise, because you take everything and you weigh. You got to read and comprehend. Same thing in the arts. Same thing in athletics. You know, the scholarship in any area mean that you take the good, but you spending time trying to diffuse the bad, and then you come up. You just don't read things that you like. So I look at scholars, I said, man, I don't make light of no scholarship, man, especially when it comes down to reading and comprehending things, because they have to figure out how to get the truth out of everything. And right now, we're in the information age, but also in the disinformation age. Everything is out there. So because you at a screen and you're looking at your screen and type it in, that don't mean that's the truth coming through the screen. That's right. Now we are in a time where everybody is addicted to getting their answers from a screen. Yeah. So when you look at a screen as opposed to a human being, then that's the same thing that even the movie The Matrix was talking about. You praising a machine instead of a human being. Yeah. So those are the areas, like in this century, where myself, Public Enemy, people like Griff and James Brown take the discussion to, like, how are you being able to dance and body against the technologies that's coming at you, trying to control your narrative? You know, it's beyond making a rap song. Before a rap song, writing a rap song in the 80s could penetrate society. Now, things that penetrate society is like, all right, how do you steer emoji? How do you make social media not become a sickness, but kind of turn it into some kind of medicine to stay coming through that screen at you. You know, these are social sciences that won't be taught to you. So, you know, people are not, they're not net literate. There's no such thing as net etiquette. And there's an area that people are thrown and thrust, especially after last year with the pandemic. They're thrust into the cyber world as a parallel universe that people will pay a price in the citizen world for what they do in cyberspace, because now both rules are out there.
And we ought to go to this next break, and we'll be back to talk more about that, Brother Chuck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps to combat false media. Cash App NNV News.
Greetings from National Network View. This week's Final Call cover story report honors the spirit and the life of the great DMX. Earl Simmons, better known as DMX, has passed away. The acronym DMX stands for Dark Man X. The great rapper, songwriter, and actor will be missed. He was the first artist to debut an album at #1 5 times in a row on the Billboard charts. Overall, DMX has sold over 74 million records worldwide. His music inspired countless fans across the world. He was nothing less than a giant. The FCN Volume Number 28 edition features the middle page article by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. The message delivers words of comfort and care as we mourn the loss of DMX. To read more, subscribe to finalcalldigital.com and tune in to the all-new Final Call Radio. This is the NNVnews.com Final Call cover report.
He anointed our head with oil till our cup runneth over. He who, Master Farrakhan, Muhammad, that is he.
Of the NOI, the music of Public Enemy was the soundtrack of our journey and growth to Islam as taught by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Peace. This is DJ Rockwell, the nation's #1 DJ. And NNV News wanted me to talk about how I was influenced by our brother Chuck D of the legendary Public Enemy. But they said you can only do it in 60 seconds. I said, 60 seconds? That's impossible. But what I can do, Brother Chuck, in 60 seconds is say thank you. Thank you, my brother, for being the voice of power. Thank you, my brother, for being the voice of awareness. We can't get careless. You made us say, what is this? Chuck, thank you for teaching us about genetics on Fear of the Black Planet album. Thank you, Chuck, because of you, I wanted to join the 98 posse before I even had a driver's license to drive. Chuck, I want to thank you because I learned about people like Joanne Chesimard. I want to thank you, Chuck, because I learned about the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Chuck, we thank you. This salute, my brother, is for you.
So, Brother Chuck, in your song, the one in the song that Public Enemy came up with, "Don't Believe the Hype," you said in that song, "The follower of Farrakhan, don't tell me that you understand until you hit a man." And the whole song is challenging the hype, you know, that this misinformation that is often put out about the minister and just a lot of other stuff related to Black people and the Black struggle. So if you've had the opportunity to interact with the minister and see him in settings away from the camera and in the public eye, what have you seen in these private moments with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan that the media doesn't see?
Well, the minister offered me some ginger cookies. He said, I shouldn't be eating this, but here's one, brother. You know, like, but hey, man, it goes beyond words, man, because I think our whole story wouldn't be what it was if we didn't just like point to the minister's work. And that's when I was seeing the media in 1986 come out against the Nation of Islam, and also come out against hip hop. I said, if I become and when I become a recording artist, I'm gonna go head up against the media and say, because they got all the tools, they got all the equipment, they got all the ears and all the eyes. Okay, well, I got a song, but culture will permeate. And I can make a statement and say, okay, man, I don't care if it's NBC, I don't care if it's the Donna Hughes show or whatever. We ain't gonna get on none of that stuff, but here's a song that tells you through the vibe or whatever, even if it don't make the radio, the person that you think is this, I'm gonna tell you he's that. And I'm gonna tell you, check it out for yourself. And at the end of the day, my lyric will last longer than these outlets that's dissing them. And that was the first impetus or Bring the Noise, Farrakhan's a Prophet, I think you all listen to. And then later on, Don't Believe the Hype. But really, I made Don't Believe the Hype first and then Bring the Noise after that. But Bring the Noise was released first in '87. And then it was in the can, Don't Believe the Hype. And then that came out in 1988, spaced apart. So it just doubled the narrative of saying, okay, forget all that stuff you read and check it out for yourself. It's logic, there's wisdom, it's understanding, and just give it some time. And don't go on what you're reading by a one-sided writer who don't even know what it's about. You know, that's where that came from. And that's why I said the duty of artists and DJs, if you want to get quote unquote heady, point to real people doing real things. Don't point at yourself. You're already a quote unquote artist or entertainer. Why you got to point to yourself? Point to somebody doing something. Point to real people doing real things. Point to the laborers laboring every day, you know? And that's where I always felt, I come from a mother and father who were humble, but 100% at their jobs and their duties. They were 100% at what they did, and they wasn't ashamed of the job or the duty they had to do. They said, if I'm not gonna want to do this particular job, I honor it till I leave and I do another job. And I come from parents that thought like that, never looked down at the job, because they said, listen, we as human beings are greater than any job that could come to us, or anything that we're wearing, or anything that we're driving. Anything else is a step down from us. And I come from that.
Wow. And I think you just gave some advice that, oftentimes we see some of the artists and they're battling whether I'm a role model and I'm a leader or this. But the advice that you gave to me is so practical that, listen, just point to people who are out there actually doing it. Right. And that just and that takes the weight off of them. A question I want to ask you, because there was a lot of controversy around by the time I get to Arizona, the song and the video. And in the video, in the end, like you see an outcome like where that's normally not seen with Black movies, Black arts, and Black videos. And I say this like I saw the movie Queen and Slim. I saw the movie American Skin. And personally, to me, it seems like with some of us, even though we're behind the cameras and writing, we still don't write ourselves in a way where we're victorious. Like Django was the only movie I can think about in the last couple of years where we came out on top, where I was able to walk out there like, yo, we won. And that was written by Terrence Quarantino, right? So, and in the video that you all did, like, yo, we came out there, we were victorious. Why do you think, I guess we can talk about the importance of imagery, and what do you think is the resistance that even some of our creatives are still not writing us in where we end up winning and walking in the sunset?
We are slave to numbers. We are slave to numbers when, look, like even on social media, people following numbers. In the record industry, where it's no longer a record industry, where they know they can't sell a file, now they tell you it's based upon visits and how many people checked it out or followed it, If somebody has a film, at the end of the day, they feel that they got to sell it. So we got to figure out what we got to do in order to sell it or get the most people to like it. And I just think in art, sometimes I learned from the best artists that you got to be unapologetic, man, when you make your art. Because I tell people, I make my art for me. Now, I know working with people, you also make art with other people to come with an end result. But I just think that people are slaves to a number game. And no matter what trade it is, and capital, it's numbers. And somebody said, well, I want this ending to be like this, but how many people are you turning off? So once you mix art with numbers, Quincy Jones said it best. He says, we could talk art, we could talk creativity. Once you start talking money, God walks out the room. Wow. so I just think that, I think there's some artists should be like, and I get into art like this. Art is short for artificial, but I tell artists all the time, make what you want to make, but if you faking while you're making it, I don't think that feels good, because that's you're not being genuine. But make seriously what you feel. If you feel that there's a gangster story in you, but at the same time you feel that you never kissed your mother, then there's something you missing telling your whole story in the mix. Because every gangster kisses his mom, and we know that really when we get down to the core of it, there ain't no such thing as no black gangsters. Not when there's a government.
That's the real.
Not when there's a prison industrial complex.
Yes.
Not when they feeding you the guns and we ain't making no guns.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? We ain't growing no drugs.
That's right.
So we acting as all these particular roles.
Right.
So, why not act as a revolutionary if you're going to act?
That's a good point, man. I always see the brothers naming themselves after, and they're victims in this, in pawns. I'm El Capone this and El Capone that. It's like, yo, they're black revolutionaries you can name yourself after. And this last question before we close out, because we're short on time, we'll close out with this. What would you say has been the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's impact on the hip hop music?
That he's humble, great voice, his tone is penetrating, and you add some knowledge, wisdom, and understanding to that, it's going to touch your soul. I don't think a lot of people, even if they say the same thing the minister says, he's gifted with a tone. I don't think a lot of people also talk about his tonality. His tone is very musical. It's very soothing yet penetrating. And when you add, a word of God or whatever you want to believe to that, very few people have that, Brother Willie. If they might have the words, they might have the diction, but they even might have the flow. But the minister has all those things, and he got the flow, the diction, the word, the truth in the word, and he got the tone, just the right voice. In hip hop and rap, people will talk about Jay-Z, it's flow, but he has a tone, the tone. And that's why the minister said it's very important for artists to kind of say some of the right things. And if you can't say the right things, point to people who are doing the right things. Not everybody's equipped to have the mic. And when you get the mic, you got to move something.
Excellent point. And Brother Chuck, once again, brother, I thank you again, because, I heard the minister say how Malcolm X's autobiography has led many people to the Nation of Islam. But right up there with that book is your music. It's amazing. Our first time hearing the name Farrakhan came from your music. And I asked myself as a teenager running the streets of New Orleans, well, damn, man, who is this Farrakhan? And it began to start making me research. And there's many people that can give that same story, my brother. So thank you, man. God bless you. We greatly appreciate you granting us this opportunity, man. And know that we appreciate everything that you and Public Enemy have done, will do, and are continuing to do.
It's an honor and it's a thanks, and we give thanks. We're just portals for that. Happen to be at the right place at the right time, doing the right thing.
Yes, sir. God bless, my brother. We hopefully the Knicks might not win that game, Chuck. So thank you all for tuning in to NNV. We thank you all for sticking through the technical difficulties. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure that you follow NNV. Make sure you tune in during the week, during our daily network reports, our news reports.